Lesson 90. Okay, Antonio, by this time, our students have some experience working with regular statements. They know how to leave out the pronoun from a normal statement. But in this lesson, we're going to examine the same thing with questions. We're going to examine how you can leave out the pronoun from a question. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the way a Spanish speaker might leave the pronoun out of a question?
Yes, it's the same concept as in regular statements, where you leave out the pronoun if it's very obvious who you are talking about. So it's very common that the Spanish speaker would leave out the pronoun. In this case, asking questions, usually if you are going to add the pronoun, it goes after the verb.
Like in our first example here, we have ¿Tienes tú un gato? That's a classic example of a question where we have the verb and then the pronoun coming after it, tienes, and then the word tú, right?
Yes, and then so when it's very, very clear you're talking to that second person, it's up to the speaker to include it or not. So if you want to just omit it, you just say, look at the second example, tienes un gato. And obviously, in this example, the pronoun is omitted.
But even without the word tú, the verb tienes still means you have.
Yes. And the only case where you're going to see the verb in that form, tienes, is when you're referring to second person singular.
So even without the word tú, the question still means the same thing. It's just when you have tú, the pronoun, it's just for additional clarity and maybe even for emphasis. Do you ever put in the pronoun for emphasis?
Well, yes. That would be the main case where I would include the pronoun if I just want to emphasize who is it I'm talking about.
Like, for instance, let's say that you have a friend and the friend says to you, I have a cat. Do you have a cat? Is that the type of situation where he would put the pronoun in to draw a distinction between himself and you?
That's exactly right, Bill. That is a good way to put it.
Okay, so in a question, the pronoun being there could be there for clarity or for emphasis. But if you don't need it for either of those things, then you can just leave the pronoun out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take a look at our exercises. In number 1, we have a question. The subject here is tú, and the verb is tienes. Together, those two words mean you have, but in this sentence, they're reversed because it's in the form of a question. So we'll translate tienes tú as do you have, and un carro means a car. So number 1 will say, do you have a car? In number 2, we have the same sentence as number 1, except we have left out the word tú, the pronoun. In Spanish, the pronoun is included within the verb. So our first word here, tienes, can mean you have all by itself. Since this is a question, we'll translate tienes as do you have? And un carro means a car. So number 2 will say the same thing as number 1. Do you have a car? In number 3, we have the pronoun nosotros, and then tenemos is the verb. Together, those two words will say, we have. But here they're in the form of a question, so their positions are reversed. We'll translate those two words as, do we have? And cuatro perros means 4 dogs. So number 3 will say, do we have 4 dogs? In number 4, we have the same sentence as in number 3, but we have left out the pronoun. However, in Spanish, the pronoun is included in the verb. So the word tenemos can mean we have all by itself. The word we and the word have are both included in the word tenemos. It's in the form of a question, so we'll translate tenemos as do we have? And cuatro perros means 4 dogs. So number 4 will say the same thing as number 3. Do we have 4 dogs? In number 5, the subject is the pronoun tu, and vês is the verb. Together, those two words say you see. But here they're in the form of a question, so their positions are reversed. We'll translate vês tu as do you see? The direct object is Senor Smith. Since he is a human being, we need to have the personal a in front of Senor Smith. Also, since we're talking about Senor Smith, we need to have the article el in front of the word senor. So we have a and we have el. Those two words have been combined into the word al. Todos los días means every day. So number 5 will say, do you see Mr. Smith every day? In number 6, we have the same sentence as number 5, except we're leaving out the pronoun. But in Spanish, the verb includes the pronoun, so the Spanish verb vês can mean you see all by itself. It includes the you and the see all in one word. In this sentence, vês is part of a question, so we'll translate vês as do you see? Again, the word al is a combination of the preposition a and the word el. We need the word el in front of Senor Smith because we are talking about him, and we need the preposition a because Senor Smith is a human being, so we have to put the personal a in front of that. Todos los días means every day, so number 6 will say the same thing as number 5. Do you see Mr. Smith every day? In number 7, the pronoun tu is the subject, and the verb is vas. Tu and vas together can say you go. Here they're in the form of a question, so we'll translate those as do you go? A means tu, and la tienda means the store. Todas las semanas means every week. So number 7 will say, do you go to the store every week? In number 8, we have the same sentence as number 7, but we're leaving out the pronoun tu. In Spanish, the pronoun is included in the verb, so the Spanish verb vas means you go all by itself. It includes the word you and the word go all in one word. Since the word vas is part of a question, we'll translate vas as do you go? A la tienda means to the store, and todas las semanas means every week. So number 8 will say the same thing that number 7 said. Do you go to the store every week? In number 9, yo voy means I go. A la tienda means to the store. Contigo means with you. And todas las semanas means every week. So number 9 says, I go to the store with you every week. In number 10, mi hermana is the subject. That means my sister. The verb is quiere. That's third person singular to agree with hermana. So mi hermana quiere will say, my sister wants. El carro means the car. De means of. And mis padres means my parents. So literally, number 10 will say, my sister wants the car of my parents. But it would sound better to translate it like this. My sister wants my parents' car. And in our English translation, since the car is belonging to more than one person, we're going to put the apostrophe at the end of the word parents after the S because it's belonging to more than one parent.